Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
Aaron, thanks for joining me here. I would like to discuss a recent PR in public and just have a chance to debate it a little bit more because I seem to recall in a code review, I think I was reviewing your pull request. And I didn't really care. Like, I didn't think, oh, this is terrible. But I'm like, why did you do this? And I made an offhand comment and you're like, yeah, I disagree. I'm like, you know what? That'll be a good podcast topic. So here we are.
Okay.
So the scenario to set up, what I had observed in the PR that I was commenting on was that you had added a bunch of values to our phpunit.xml file. And these were keys that are also specified in like the .env.example file. Right. And so it doesn't matter what they're for, but they're for talking to an external service.
Yeah. Well, and before you go on too far, let's make sure when we say it doesn't matter what they're for, the env locally is filled up of two different things, right? The .env file is filled up of workflow control and credentials.
Okay.
So workflow control, I mean things like, is this enabled or is it not enabled?
Oh, sure.
Are we in debug mode? What database do we even, like what connection do we pick? Not the credentials, but what connection? So it's all workflow. And then there's a second reason for it, which is credentials, like API keys, passwords, things like that. So I just want to make sure that we bring those up because I think that might be the core of some of the things here too.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm prepared to be wrong about this. But so these were credentials, right? These were things that you would use to talk to another third party or some other system, external system. And the ones you had added were actually things I had coded in a previous PR. And I did not add them to the PHP unit XML. But then I believe what happened is you were working on this code, your tests were passing, then you ran the whole suite like a good developer, and some tests failed related to these keys that I had done in the previous PR. And you're like, Joel, blah, blah, blah. And then you added this to the PHP unit XML, and then your test passed and you moved on. Is that?
Yep.
Okay. And my contention was like, Aaron, whenever somebody adds something to the project's env example, it is your responsibility as a developer to copy that into your .env, right? Like that's part of.
Absolutely.
You agree with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, good. Then I'm right. So
no, we didn't go all the way through.
I'll keep going. So all right. So defend yourself and explain it to me because I maybe see where you're going, but.
Okay. Defend yourself.
Let me say this. If you had copied that env example to your env, your test would have passed, correct?
Yeah, your tests in my suite would have passed if I would have copied the .env.example files or lines over that I honestly forgot, did not notice.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So
now I'm going to take it over now here because I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't do that because that is the reason I still agree with what I did. And the reason is because, because we talk about, remember it was credentials.
Yes.
So when we work with Stripe, we put in something in our php.unit or phpunit.xml, we're like Stripe key, do not use.
Right.
So we know that there's a key in there and it hits. I don't remember what was in your .env.example, but I'm maybe it was like do not use, or maybe it was like some credentials that would have worked for yours or whatever. But I don't know what they were. But even if I had copied them over, it would have probably hidden the fact that I wanted to at least zero out the API key credential or something like that. And if there wasn't an API key or credential, then at least the host name. Because I want to make sure my tests never accidentally use my .env locally to load up my test development environment and hit things third party.
Sure.
So while I should have copied over to .env.example, the fact that I didn't showed me that there was tests that would hit those. Whether or not they would actually call out, I don't know. But they were dying because they were missing those keys. And so I put them there to basically say that I wanted to stop this. Now, when I think about it, I think I did it wrong in another way. And I'll tell you how so that you can feel happy here.
Thank you.
There was like 4 or 5 keys. What I should have done.
I'm looking at it. There's 7.
Whatever. So what I should have done is copy over those to the env from the env.example from my local copy when I first noticed it. That's what I should have done. Then I should have added in one key to make sure that they could never hit the external world in a php.unit.xml.
All right. So so I'm going to push back a little bit because I
Mhm.
agree in principle with everything you said, but I think it might not completely have been the way you're describing it because there was let's call the service, let's say Stripe, because Stripe is something
Yeah.
people know about. So like I had a key in there called Stripe host that was some invalid URL, blah blah blah. Stripe isn't really a great example because this
But look, it doesn't matter. Like third party, like insurance company. We're hitting insurance company, and you had a URL for insurance company API, right?
yeah, and okay, so all of the keys in here, the ones that you added that I did not choose to put in the PHP unit XML were not credentials. They were like port numbers and they were like configuration, like this is the location ID it's going to
Yeah.
look up in
Yeah.
that service.
Absolutely.
So but so you still feel like that is
No,
something
those
that
are
should,
workflows. Those are like configuration or workflow. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. I would have copied over to dot all seven from .env that example to my .env.
okay.
Then I should put one env in PHP unit.xml, finding that host and making sure it was something crazy. Because remember,
Oh,
we might use this locally. And so
yes.
locally, the .env, we might actually make a real host. So if we don't put something in PHP unit.xml to make it a fake host, and one of our tests runs, it'll hit that real host.
Okay, so I did have the host name in there already as fake. So I was right.
Right, but you're not you're what if I wanted to use it in real life locally in my apartment? And
Okay.
that's what I keep saying. It's like when I configure those properly, it would be working for my development environment, and I run my tests. And if a test was configured to hit that, it would hit that.
Oh, but just to clarify, I'm saying I did put the one entry in PHP unit.xml that talks, that's the host name. All the other things were configuration. The host name was already there.
Oh, did you? Oh, I missed that then. You should have pushed. You should have pushed back harder then.
Okay, no, that's fair. But I think this, I'm going to take away from this. I don't care if anybody else is benefiting from this right now, but I never really thought about the distinction that you drew between like configuration slash workflow and credentials.
Mhm.
So like, and credentials would include things like the host name, like the way you talk to the outside world
Yeah,
is, yeah, okay. So, all right, I feel like we both had good points, but I'm going to say I won.
I'm definitely right. Cool. You know, it's funny that like things go in sort of cycles. You know, you notice that with like trends, clothes, design, interior design, houses, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I never really thought about the cycles of entertainment because it always just seemed like our entertainment sort of moved forward. But then I started thinking like, no, it does a cycle too. And something hit me the other day that is just actually hilarious. And I don't know if
Okay.
anyone else finds it hilarious, but I'm just going to say this the statement, and then you can agree or disagree. YouTube Music is just basically MTV again,
Okay. Yeah.
because all it is I've seen this now. Like people in a generation different than mine, younger, will play YouTube Music either in their other screen or even like minimize, and it's a music video with the music. I'm like, you're basically watching MTV again. And by the way, don't get me started on just being a guy who like is stuck in the past, thinking about data, bandwidth, and all that kind of stuff. You
Oh
just want
man.
the audio. So why are you sending the video? Ah, but anyway, yeah, it's just MTV again. It's interesting how those things circle. So as we kind of learned in this podcast, you can do something right and wrong all at the same time. It's sort of opinion, but is it opinion? I don't really know, but a lot of that stuff will come out during a code review.
Code review, that's something we could help your team with. If you'd like Aaron and I to review your code, head over to masteringlaravel.io/code review.